Good morning to all those who are in North America. Good afternoon to all the people in UK and Europe. Good evening to the rest of the world. I am Midun Pingili. I handle corporate marketing and events at Cigniti Technologies. We are world's largest quality engineering company, bringing the power of AI into Agile and DevOps to accelerate enterprise digital transformation. At Cigniti, we host thought leadership sessions, including webinars, podcasts on quality engineering on a regular basis. I'm excited today to welcome you all to this webinar on quality engineering in a safe world. At any point in time during the webinar, if you have a question for the speakers, please use the panel on the right side to locate the chat and share your questions. We'll cover them at the end of the webinar. We have two eminent speakers for this webinar today. First, let me introduce Jermaine Oldham, Senior Director, DevOps, SDLC, and Enterprise Quality Engineering at JB Hunt Transport, a Fortune 500 company. Jermaine is an IT executive with 20 plus years of experience and specialized in leading data, infrastructure, and application teams initiatives for large and complex organizations. His passion is to make technology the tool to support enhance business processes and moreover, the vehicle to make data accessible to all organizational levels, therefore helping produce faster and more accurate results. Today, Jermaine will share his experience working in implementing quality engineering in a safe world. Welcome to the webinar, Jermaine. Our next speaker of the day is Pradeep Govindasamy, President and Chief Technology Officer at Cigniti. Pradeep is an industry thought leader in software testing with over 20 years of experience. He has strong expertise in setting up testing centers of excellence around test management, quality engineering, test automation, mobility, and functional testing. He is a keynote speaker at diverse industry forums, workshops, and Pradeep is an award-winning CTO of Texas and was also recognized as top 100 best CIO of Pan India. For us today, he talks about quality engineering for the digital enterprises, its trends, shift from the quality assurance to quality engineering, and more. Welcome, Pradeep. I'm now handing over to Pradeep.
Thank you, Mithun. And thank you so much, Jermaine, for being the speaker with us and today to talk about the DevOps and digital transformation. Okay. So digital in technology world includes artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud, and various other aspects such as niche technologies like RPA, robotic process automation, cloud initiatives, and migration towards various IoT formats, Internet of Things format. When it comes to digital as an overall IT market spend for next year, it's going to cross over $1 trillion market. Right? When it comes to digital transformation in transportation and logistics, which is one of our co-speaker speaking in this area, the expected market to grow up to about 145 billion with a compounded annual growth rate of 13% by 2025. So this is the market at which focus is on the digital transformation. And all the corporates, Fortune 100 or Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000, 2000, any of the organization are moving towards enabling their information technology into the digital world, right? So that's the future of information technology. In today's session, we're going to talk about how digital transformation impacted the quality assurance or software testing market and what is quality engineering is all about. But primary focus is towards scaled agile framework for the engineering world. So we're going to talk about what is SAFe and how JB Hunt has achieved efficiency through SAFe and the best practices, methodologies, and various tools that are implemented throughout the journey of it. Right? At a high level, if you look at what the agenda for today's topic, it's going to be shift from what is quality assurance towards quality engineering, why the shift is happening. What is quality engineering for digital enterprise? When organizations adopt digital transformation, what is quality engineering for them? Where to start the quality engineering? How to adopt the technology that is embedded with the quality engineering market? And quality engineering trends for 2019 and beyond. So what is the expert or leader to look for beyond 2019? How they can adopt those technology? What are skill deployment or what are some of those courses and certification behind it, and what is the framework to adopt, right? And why look at SAFe, right? Why not some other methodologies? And what is so special about SAFe in the Agile and DevOps world? We will focus on that. And a safe transformation in the JB Hunt transportation, which will be presented by our eminent speaker, Jermaine, who is a leader in the DevOps and quality engineering market, right? And followed by a Q&A. The analyst commentary, this is the leading analyst commentary, talk about where the organization is heading towards. Like, for example, Gartner said that, organization leaning toward and change towards allowing DevOps to flourish, right? So when they started with Agile and then they are moving ahead towards the DevOps world. By 2020, 95% of the organization would have either touched an Agile or 90% of the organization would have evolved themselves into a DevOps organization, right? So, and it's not just an acronym anymore. It is the methodology, it is the framework, it is the principle that is being followed by many organizations. And so is with the Forrester, and they said that 42% of the enterprise claim that they have either Agile and DevOps, they are running a parallel, and they call that as a transformation. So 2020 is going to be the year of transformation in making this DevOps as a mainstream or Agile as a mainstream. One of the best framework to adopt Agile and DevOps is the Scale, right? Scaled Agile framework. Right? It continues to be the method of choice by many organizations. When CollateralNet, one of the leader in the Scaled Agile framework industry in the DevOps market, when they did the survey, 30% of them responded that they want to follow SAFe, primarily because they want to have a speed and accuracy and a best practices to be culminated. And another market research said that DevOps market to reach about 9.4 billion globally by 2023 and growth of about 19% in that, right? So these are some of the analysts, but when you look for the details, the specifics of it, everyone claimed that they want to move towards DevOps, and they are looking at best practices. They are looking at how to do a continuous integration, continuous delivery, and what is continuous testing embedded with it, right? And what are some of those new tools that are evolving? And all organizations, gone are those world that you're looking at only a standard tool for automation or looking at standard test management tool. Today they are talking about orchestration of quality engineering. How can I enable all my scripts into cloud and execute that on a continuous integration? How can development team take all those code that the quality engineering organization develop, how they can execute it when they complete their continuous integration into that? So those are high level of techniques that are being evolved in today's IT world. And in tomorrow's IT world, it's going to go into the third level of maturity in it. Right? Shift from quality assurance to quality engineering. So quality assurance, I'm sure most of the participants here have come across quality assurance in their IT lifecycle, right? So which is your software testing. You would do your regression testing, manual testing, your automation testing on your functional and system integration level, right? That defines your quality assurance. So then what is quality engineering involved into that? So the quality engineering involves right from your requirement validation, your DevOps engineering, your validation of your design and development. How can I build the code quality in it, right? What are some of those gray box and black box quality check to analyze whether the code is good for you to do your functional testing or ready for your smoke testing or not? Moving towards the digital solutions such as your mobility solutions or AI and ML practices involved into that. What are some of those infrastructure services such as your operational readiness testing or build readiness testing? So these are some of those high-end infrastructure services creates this quality engineering services in your organization. So if you are moving from QA to QE, you would touch all of these areas that are mentioned in the circle around the quality engineering. So basically you write first time right has been emphasized with the agile practices. And DevOps, when you get into DevOps, quality is achieved only by collaboration with your dev, with your testing, and with your operations team. So it's not just the dev alone, it is the operation, your performance monitoring, your application performance monitoring, your sentiment analyzer, your feedback that gets into the shift right and shift left, and so that you can continue to do the testing right first time, right? Higher level of transparency has been introduced because of the metrics and dashboard. So the metrics and dashboard is no longer a testing metric. It defines your cost of quality metric. So which is basically, how do you build your requirement validation? Is your static requirement is validated at the first end or not? Your test design is validated or not? There are concepts like test driven development, and look at some of those metrics and dashboards around it, right? And many CIOs are now looking at testing as part of, or quality engineering as part of the end-to-end life cycle, right? So it shifted from the regular functional model to an end-to-end full life cycle automations. They want to have automation throughout the life cycle. So one such automation that got evolved, which is RPA, robotic process automation. The quality engineering encompasses that RPA as well into that organization. So the CIOs are looking at these organizations to evolve their skill set to build the robotic process automation as part of the quality engineering lifecycle, right? So the transformation is the key theme. It has been accepted top to bottom, and now the rebrand of the word quality engineering is going to be the future of all the software testing industry experts, right? And quality engineering for digital enterprise. So what it takes actually, if you look at when your organization moving towards a digital enterprise, you have to create a framework or an ecosystem for you to evolve into the leader of doing the quality engineering services, right? What are some of those concepts or framework into that, right? The first and foremost is the intelligence and automation. So you have to build an automation with artificial intelligence into that, or with machine learning into that. For example, when you build your performance engineering or performance testing, you just don't look at transaction per second or how you do your performance execution in it. You also start to look at how do you predict your performance for your future releases. How can you predict your defect density or defect leakage in your future releases? If a build is being ready, what type of framework or tools or best practices are followed, so you can start to predict based on certain data, based on metrics, and based on technology, and based on various framework. And that's your defect predictive intelligence that you need to build in your automation. And not only that, automation involves not just a UI base. You start to build your microservices or API automation, or underlying SOA, service virtualization, test data management automation, and all of them gets integrated into your continuous integration framework. So that's going to be the future of automation and intelligence world. And world-class testing lab, it's no more the automation lab. You need to start building a cloud lab for hosting all of your scripts. For example, Selenium, now number of tool vendors have come up with cloud hosting of all those automations, so that you can start executing all those scripts in an unintended fashion with various machines and various virtualization involved into that. And even Amazon have come up with something called device form, where you can host all your mobile devices into the form and integrate all your automation tools. And so you can execute all those in a cloud form or cloud foundry methodology. So those are world-class testing labs have come, and most of them are open source, or most of them are cloud enabled. So you don't need to have a physical and dedicated labs in your environment and maintain security and compliance associated. Everything can be a controlled cloud with high security involved into that. And industry specific skills. So the QA is not just software testing skill set alone. You need to start building skills for certain domains, certain technology. Like for example, Salesforce is one of those product that has evolved into many industry now. So organization is looking to have skill set in that space. Or for hospital industry, which is one of the product called Epic, or Guidewire for insurance. So there are many products that have come. So you need to start building those skills, primarily because when you build your robotic process automation, you need to know what the business process. As soon as you gain your functional knowledge, your QA knowledge, your QE knowledge, and your automation, you can start build your RPA around it. So that's an industry specific skill set is being evolved. And architected with customer experience. So no longer you build your testing and then leave it to production. So you will start to build your customer experience lab, where you can involve end users or to do the testing, and then start to see how you can emulate those experience and bring it back into your quality life cycle, right? So that's, given the world of digital, you have a lot of social media interaction, you have IoT interaction, you have multiple network interactions and multiple geographical interaction. So you start to build a customer experience lab, pilot it with the end users, and then bring it back into your overall IT experience. Agile and DevOps culture. So culture is the key for all the Agile and DevOps world. So without that, it cannot be successful. Primarily because we are going back to the old school of thought that development, QA, operations, everybody in one single team and executing it on a day-to-day basis. So culture remains as key. And primarily, if we have to adopt to that Agile and DevOps culture, the only way is to get ourselves into the quality engineering world. There is a new skill that got evolved over the last 2 to 3 years, which is your software development engineer and test. We call it as SDET, right? So the SDET skill is the key for Agile and DevOps culture, right? So, start building all those development techniques into the software testing, and then enable yourself into the quality engineering world so that you can challenge back all those dev team, all those QA, the operations team, and build that culture into your organization. Quality at speed, right? So the organization primarily evolved into the digital world just to get the speed to the market, right? So these are some of those concepts or framework getting evolved, and which will be the critical success factor for the quality engineering in the digital enterprise world, right? With that note, I will hand it over to Jermaine. These are some of the trends that we are seeing in 2019, which I already mentioned about SAFe, agile transformation, quality at speed, AI and ML techniques, and built-in quality for your agile and delivery models involved into that. Jermaine, I'm going to hand it over to you for the SAFe transformation here.
Great, thank you, Pradeep. I really appreciate you setting me up, doing an introduction. So I'm going to talk about the SAFe transformation here at JB Hunt, and really what drove our QE transformation in SAFe is a multitude of problems. So we lacked a quality culture really as part of our SDLC, and we realized that there were skill gaps, process awareness, and we really lacked the quality mindset. So that was one of the reasons why we essentially wanted to transform our organization. Another reason was there was a lack of collaboration and communication. So when you think about scrum of scrums, a lack of communication between multiple scrum teams, lack of communication between the business teams and operations teams and program and portfolio teams as well. Another point is we essentially had an inconsistent deployment process. So from code commit to production was not consistent. We certainly had a lack of testing. We did a lot of manual testing, very little automation, and we really didn't have a clear-cut process for continuous integration and continuous deployment, let alone continuous testing. So that was another reason. We had, fourth point is lack of efficient, stable environments to facilitate testing. So one of the key components that organizations need to enable as part of the ensuring products and services is stable environment. So that is one of the driving forces behind us going through this transformation as well, is that we had a lack of stable lower environments to facilitate and to certify changes as we're moving along the CI/CD process. And then the final thing was tool utilization and integration gaps. So we had a multitude of tools. We knew that we needed to consolidate. We knew that we needed to streamline our DevOps and QE tool chain. And we realized that it wasn't one size fits all. There was going to be open source tools. There was going to be commercial off-the-shelf tools in order for us to develop our overall DevOps tool chain. So if you think about the SAFe implementation for JB Hunt, for the QE organization, it really starts with development. So you've got requirement and design. We are Agile Scrum. Some teams use Combine, but it's really an iterative development where we're developing locally. We're using source code management to check in. We're building packages, and then finally, we've got a final build. So the important thing to note with this development process is it drives, and it's important to drive consistent feedback. So as things don't pass, as things fail, you've got to get that feedback early within the SDLC to drive really development and requirements. So if I think about a continuous integration tool and server, so part of this QE transformation was enabling our organization and really driving to have testing. So testing, when I think about If you go to the QE line there, it's all about unit testing. It's all about integrated functional testing, where we're testing the UI, services, and non-GUI. Automated SIT, so system integration testing, is another component which the my QE organization really owns in terms of driving validation, final validation of a product and of a system to ensure that we are good to go to release this artifact. It's all, in addition, about automated regression bed, so automated regression testing to ensure that as you're releasing changes throughout the CI/CD process, that you're not breaking anything that was working before. And then we also cannot forget about the non-functional testing. So that's important. I think a lot of organizations today do a great job with unit testing and functional testing of their application, but another component of that, and really important component, is non-functional testing. So when I think about non-functional testing, I'm thinking about security testing. I'm thinking about performance and load testing. So that's really important as well. And all of that was driven by test data engineering and management. So test data is really important as you're executing your test, and engineering of that data to make sure you got the right data, the right test elements at the right time. So if I move down a little bit, shift right practice is that another important part of the transformation was making sure that we were closely aligned with our system and operations teams. So, and if you really think about the true meaning of DevOps, it's really about development and operations coming together, because really development is really looking to release a code and features and functionality as quickly as possible. But you've got your development, your operations organization that is really concerned with production stability. And then you really have the quality engineering, quality QA organization that kind of brings it all together to really form DevOps. So system and operations teams are very important from an environment management perspective. In automating environments for the devs and QE teams, and then continuous infrastructure monitoring. So it's not only important to monitor your production systems, but it's also important for you to monitor your downstream systems, because that's really where you facilitate and drive testing. So moving over to the enterprise test architects, the solution train, really for that facet, it's really about certification for implementation, installation, operations, production, and maintenance, end user monitoring, and proactive production incident and RCA and resolution. So it's really about that consistent flow of, as things come up, you're resolving them. As things go wrong, you are addressing them to really ensure and making sure that you're doing the right testing at the right time to ensure the quality of your product. So SAFe journey so far, we've adopted a CMMI-based model. And the way I'll explain this is really, level 1 is initial, level 2 is repeatable, level 3 is defined. And these are successes that we've had so far for the CMMI-based model. And we're still, I will say this, that we are by no means perfect, but we are on this journey. But we've had a lot of successes that we could declare today. So in the initial phase, it's really ALM processes and tools with version control and manual builds. Manual testing with dedicated environments, provision manually. Manual change and release processes that we would execute as a part of the SDLC. And baseline on enterprise change, release, and deploy metrics. So when we looked at our CMMI-based model, we said that in order for us to initially get started, that we needed to go after these things in order to mature our SDLC. So level 2, repeatable. So we piloted an agile methodology with a dev squad. We centralized our source control and artifact management systems. We went after automation of enterprise system integration testing, because we wanted to test more and faster and really have SIT integrated as a part of the CI/CD process. We automated unit tests, but we wouldn't quite mature yet in terms of performance and security testing, so that was still manual. But we realized very early that in order for us to be successful, that we needed to have a lot of unit tests, and not just testing coverage of the code, but assertion and making sure that the values that we were expecting were true. And then we realized that we needed to standardize our deployment processes. Finally, in defined, enterprise-wide adoption and the implementation of agile practices. So we scaled it from one squad to multiple squads. We also implemented enterprise code quality gates, and we defined them and we implemented them. So when I think about code quality gates, it's static code analysis, and really defining how you measure your code and code quality. And some of the metrics that we implemented were around code coverage, around security, maintainability, and et cetera. And we essentially defined a standardized and set quality gate that all development, whether you were .NET, Java, Angular, had to go through in order for you to pass. And if you pass, then you was able to build your code, create the artifact, and essentially release it to continuously deploy to dev. So extreme programming, from a string programming perspective, short-lived branches and CI enabled. So thinking about having master short-lived branches and having master continuously clean and deployable was important to us. Infrastructure as code, leveraging Terraform and Ansible, and really building out a catalog. So as we needed a multitude of services, that we had a catalog that we could call upon as a part of the CI/CD process, so that we could call these services, we could build them, we could populate with Ansible from a configuration perspective, and then we can move throughout the pipeline. And then finally, streamline release automation and define and implement it. So we know that we needed to streamline our release process, we needed to define that, and we needed to implement those processes. So as I look to the next level, which is level 4 managed and level 5 optimized, so these are some of the things that we've done with that as well. So we initiated SAFe for key programs and portfolios, so taking it from the team dev squad level to programs and portfolios. Dev squad adoption of build and release automation. So really thinking about how do you automate the builds, how do you automate releases, and how do you really get zero touch from a CI/CD process perspective. And Pradeep touched on this, but really for us, it was really about mindset, right? So if I think about some of the transformation we made was about having a quality mindset, right? And having that capability sit within a dev squad. So having a development squad responsible for their own quality, right? And providing them with the tool set in order for them to be successful from a framework perspective. And then DevSecOps, we defined our strategy and implemented. So really integration with our IT security team, and really letting the security team be part of the SDLC, not outside, not when the artifact gets created and deployed and now it's running in production, and the security team comes along and scans production applications and databases and finds security vulnerabilities. No, it's part of the SDLC to provide consistent feedback to the developer upon the local IDE or throughout the SDLC to ensure that security practices are incorporated and is a part of the practice. And then finally, DevOps QE Guild with continuous learning. Another thing we realized is that we needed to educate our organization. So we've launched a series called DevOps Lunch and Learns, where we have someone sponsor us, and then we bring in success stories where we share best practices across the enterprise. And best practices can range from test automation to DevOps best practices to build automation, to release automation, et cetera. And essentially, we did that because we wanted to, number one, highlight the great work that we was doing internally, but we also wanted to share those across the enterprise. So that was very important. So level 5 optimized is application containerization and orchestration. So really Docker, Kubernetes for us to be able to scale our applications and really provide the developers more control in terms of being able to deploy, build and deploy. Product level application scorecard approach defined. So one of the things we've done is really define from a product level is that what our metrics are. So when I think about our metrics, and I won't go into details of each of the specific metrics, but we have defined development metrics, we've defined operations metrics, and we've defined business metrics. And essentially, if I look at the scorecard today, there are about 10 metrics that we are measuring across all of our products, and they're the same metrics, but they're different for each of the products. But it's the consistency of being able to measure how my product's doing, financially, how my product's doing from a code quality perspective, how my infrastructure is doing for that product from an infrastructure availability and reliability perspective. Developer self-service. So we really wanted to enable our developers and not be a bottleneck from a DevOps organization perspective, and really providing them with the tool sets in order to do their job. So as much automation and CI/CD processes we can provide them in their hands, we want to do that. We also released a chatbot, and really this chatbot really was for the developers to engage with the chatbot to answer common questions, to get best practices, and etc. And that was really to drive automation, so that as the developers are developing and really trying to get these new features to production as fast as possible, they can engage with the chatbot versus going to a centralized team and get their questions answered. And then finally, last but not least, is zero downtime deployment. It was really about our rollout of Docker and Kubernetes, and really having the scalability to roll out our applications in a containerized fashion, so that we drove better uptime, resiliency, and reliability for our global applications. So if I think about the quality engineering approach and QE philosophy, it's really about building in quality day one, right, into your SDLC. It's really about, and that's driven by enabling extreme automation approaches. So if you think about building in quality, it's about automation, and it's about things that you've got to do around shifting what you're doing. So I'll start with the top. It's about shifting left approach. So when I think about continuous integration and continuous deployment, another important thing in that is making sure that you've got continuous testing as a part of the process. So strengthening requirements from a quality perspective, so you could drive in-sprint automation from a unit component UI and API perspective. It's all about non-functional testing and making sure that you are doing non-functional testing, and hopefully it's automated. And then continuous integration and continuous testing, right? So it's not only about integrating and having short-lived branches where you're merging code into master and you're doing unit testing and component testing and functional testing, but it's all about that continuous, right? So you're continuously testing and doing regression testing to ensure that you're not breaking anything. And that's really what drives speed to market, is that for every scenario that you're able to integrate, if you're able to test and validate that change is good, you're able to release that and get it out to your end users faster. Shift right, I won't go through all of these, but it's really about product monitoring and continuous feedback and release and operational readiness and certification. QE support and acceleration. I spoke about this, but it's automated CI, CT, and CD for seamless tools integration. And really the important thing there, a lot of people do CI very well. Not very many people do CD very well, but the key thing is continuous testing, the CT part. So how do you drive continuous deployment? It's really that continuous testing to certify that your products and services are good before you release new code. And innovation in testing and test management is really about innovating and making sure that you've got the right best practices in place and the right approach, and you're continuously evolving that. And then proactive QE governance. Governance is important to mitigate known defects, risks with predictive models, to integrate agile QE frameworks around quality, process, and operations. Proactive monitoring, total cost of ownership and returns, and really developing real-time KPIs and SLA monitoring. And that's really, I spoke about this in a previous slide, is that our product scorecards are really that real-time KPIs and SLA monitoring to ensure that our products are operating to the level that we need them to. And if they're not, then we have real-time visibility into our product scorecards so that we can course correct. So benefits realized by JB Hunt so far. So accelerated application delivery with improved quality. I will say we are by no means perfect in this area, but we made a lot of progress. consistent release management processes. So if you really want to get really good at CI/CD, you've got to have a consistent deployment process, and it's got to be thinkless, right? So if I think about the way that we deploy today, it's streamlined, it's consistent. We know the inputs and outputs. And we're able to predict based upon the CI/CD process that we've set up. DevSecOps adoption, reduce organizational risk by 50%. So really including our IT security team inside of the SDLC early and often. And really, in that instance, it's really about the developer and the IT security professional talking to one another. Really, DevOps gets removed. We enable security to be part of the SDLC. When it comes to security, security's in charge, and they are essentially making the decisions and coordinating directly with the developers to educate on security best practices. Efficient tool orchestration. So if I think about the way that we code, build, test, deploy, operate, and monitor, it's really about choosing the right tools as a part of the CI/CD process, CI/CD process, in order to maximize our opportunity. And like I said earlier, we use a combination of open source as well as commercial off-the-shelf tools that was a right fit for us. So anytime releases through a golden CI/CD pipeline, we are still currently working on this. And really our ultimate goal is to have a hands-off CI/CD process that's driven by CT, where we are able to spin up a dynamic-like environment. We call it a production-like environment, spin up services, where we're able to do isolated testing for a product and certify any changes. And if that certification happens and it gets certified, then we certify the system, meaning the ecosystem of products, and then it gets released. So really our ultimate goal is to go from monthly releases to weekly releases to daily. And that's really driven by our QE and DevOps best practices through the Golden Pipeline. Enterprise product scorecards with real-time KPIs. I touched up on that and how we're leveraging that. Improved feature time delivery to market by 3 times. So we're able to, through our score, one of the things that we're measuring as part of the development process is lead time for changes. So lead time for features, cycle time, and lead time for features. So we're really measuring that to be able to say, okay, from the time that we make a feature active, how long does it take development to do that? And then how quickly does that get into our customers' hands? So we're measuring that now. By no means are we perfect, but now we've got a mechanism via our product scorecards to be able to measure that so that we could continuously drive that down and get more efficient and really delivering value to the business. Accelerated regression cycles from weeks to hours, and that's really about our transformation journey. Pradeep spoke about it, but we really have made the transition from QA to QE, so quality assurance to quality engineering, and really driving our testing through as much as automation as possible, and as part of the CI/CD process. And this is listed last, but it is probably the most important thing on the slide. It's all about shifting the culture, right? It's all about having a quality mindset. It is all about driving quality organizational wide with a quality mindset. And you've got to start there first. So you've got to start with the mindset. You've got to start with, I own my own quality as a developer. I own my own quality as a quality assurance, quality engineer. And I'm going to do everything possible to ensure that I'm shipping products that are quality and add value to the business. So with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Pradeep.
Thank you, Jermaine. And just for all your information, when Jermaine took over 2 years back, the quality assurance team, the first and foremost goal is transformation. So he's been tasked to do the transformation, like he mentioned about, setting up a COE for the quality engineering, building out the CT pipeline, And when the organization build the automation pipeline, they make sure that it is continuously integrated. It is part of the CI pipeline itself. So that's the ultimate goal that they've achieved by integrating automation scripts throughout the overall life cycle, right? So that's one of the key takeaways that we can infer. And when many of organizations try to decentralize, they say that I want to move from TCOE or centralized testing group to decentralized group, or they want to move their quality assurance team as part of the development organization. That's the journey that many organizations trying to take. It's not about eliminating the QA jobs. It's about transforming yourself into the quality engineering areas, right? You need to start evolving yourself into quality engineering, part of the integration team, and continue to do the testing. And that's why this market that we are trying to create, along with various analyst firm called continuous testing. It's not just the CI/CD alone in a DevOps world. It is the CT, it is the DevSecOps, it's the DevTestOps, and everything embedded as part of your full IT lifecycle. So SAFe is the best way to get involved from a development and as well as from a quality engineering standpoint, right? And adopting progressive approach with built-in quality techniques. When you go into the transformation, so bring all those progressive approach into the organization. And the challenges that you will have all those challenges faced when you transform yourself from the regular QA function to a QE function and then adopt to the SAFe framework. There are a lot of challenges that you would face to get into the technology, get into the framework, to understand the metrics, to report metrics in a different way, and to make sure that you're challenging yourself not only from a quality but also challenge the development and operations team involved into that. So come up with all those best practices. We'll be happy to share in depth of what it is, and we are going to conclude with a white paper that we're going to launch on this that has the full stack of all the details that you have seen just now. So that's going to be launched as part of the outcome of this webinar. We'll be happy to share it at any point in time. If you'd like to get access to the PowerPoint presentation that you just saw or the white paper, please feel free to reach out to marketing@cigniti.com. We'll be happy to share all the details, right? And from a certification course these are some of those certification courses for the QA organization to adopt. Like, for example, the SAFe for Teams and SAFe for Scrum Master. There are many certification courses that are available. In our best experience, if you're part of the Scrum team, go into the SAFe for Scrum Master training and eventually get into that. Or if you're part of the release test automation, so get involved in release training and certification. Or if you're part of a lead or owner of a program and still want to support, there are certain product management certification and SAFe for DevOps. The highest recommendation would be to take all of them, over a period of time, so that you have mastered in it, and then you show value to your organization from being a quality engineering leader in that, right? So that's the recommendation. We have shared the link that you can go through that. There are classroom training and certification that are available that will be very useful for when you build a career. And also, we are hosting a thought leadership event on quality engineering, and the key topic would be on artificial intelligence and continuous testing to accelerate digital transformation. This is going to be held in San Francisco on November 13th, and the speaker would be from Forrester, Diego, who's focused his time and effort in building a market share for continuous testing and writing all those thought leadership session on that segment. It's only an invite. If you want to know the details of it, please feel free to send the details to marketing@cigniti.com. We'll be happy to share the link, and acceptance will be complimentary, but we will go through the due diligence process to invite the people for this event. It's going to be one of the thought leadership event again. And as leader in the quality engineering market, we want to promote the quality engineering. We want to promote how organization can look at continuous testing, the pipeline of it, and what are some of those best practices on scaled agile framework that you just saw, right? So these are some of the thoughts that we want to share. And with that note, I will leave the floor open for Q&A, question and answers, please. Please drop in your questions and we'll be happy to take it.
Hey, thank you, Pradeep. Thanks, Jermaine. We have a few questions lined up, and I'll just read out. I think this is for Jermaine, especially. I think this is from Karen Gonzalez. So he asks, how did you align the systems teams Where were your systems teams rolled out by value products or product stream? Maybe Jermaine, this is for you. You
Okay,
want to take
yeah, no problem. Yeah, so how do we align the systems team and they align by product? The systems team is aligned within themselves. So one of the things that I drove was really thinking about the DevOps culture mindset. Is I embraced the systems team from day one and said, we are going to be one team. We are going to be integrated and we're going to work together. So in the beginning, when I think about DevOps and QE, QA, and the systems team, there were a lot of overlap of roles and responsibilities. I had to work with my infrastructure counterparts to get that aligned very quickly. We had some very uh, uh, fluent conversations. But one of the things that I drove was, and I aligned to the leader of that organization was, we've got to work together. If we have a disagreement, we're going to do it behind closed doors. But we have got to align our organization. So driving that alignment at the leadership level, at the director level, really allowed our teams and created a free flow for them to come together as well. And what you started to see after a few months is the silos were getting broke down. So it's like, okay, you're responsible for infrastructure, but yet we've got this shared responsibility as a part of the overall DevOps culture. And it was a beautiful thing to see. And it was a matrixed organization. So it's really about enabling the culture, driving the culture, breaking down silos. If there's an issue, then you go address that with the mindset of, we've got to work together to make this happen.
Thank you, Jermaine. I think you have one more question here from Sanat. What is the skill set changes that were introduced and how did JB Hunt archived? So it's to you, Jermaine.
Yeah, so the skill set changes. If I think about the skill set from moving from a QA to a QE, it's really, if I think of my QEs as developers, they're developers that are writing code to validate systems for automated validation. So it is things like we're not focused on tech stack here, but our tech stack of choice is Protractor with Selenium, TypeScript as and we use JMeter for performance and load testing. So it's really about transitioning from a manual testing perspective and really providing development classes to your team and for them to start being able to, one, maintain existing scripts, two, being able to modify and troubleshoot, three, being able to write their own. So one of the things that we did, and we realized very early to enable this QE transformation, is that we had to bring in some help. So as you realize, we brought in Cigniti in order to help us, to help define that QA to QE transformation. And then we also went out and got some help and hired some talent that had been there and done that from a quality engineering perspective, because we needed folks to maintain existing scripts that and scenarios that Cigniti had helped us write. And then we needed those individuals to help coach the rest of the organization that were QAs, that were challenging to be QAs, to come along and create that roadmap. So you got to be very intentional about setting objectives and moving in stages, making that transition from a manual quality assurance department to a quality engineering organization.
Thanks, Jermaine. So we have lots of questions flowing in. I know we'll take another question here. So we have a question on how does testing and SAFe affect IoT and digital transformation? Would you like to answer, Jermaine?
You want to take that one, Pradeep?
Yeah, sure. Mithun, can you please repeat the question?
How does testing in SAFe affect IoT and digital transformation?
Oh, yeah, sure. The SAFe is just a methodology or a framework But the type of testing that you would do for these technologies would be different. Like for IoT, you have to look at all the device, the near field communications, and some of the integration into the various network and the Wi-Fi and wireless connections and carrier connections. So these are some of those aspects would differ, and you have to start doing it early in the game by doing a lot of simulations of it, or by doing a lot of near field communication. So those are some of those framework would differ, but as such the SAFe Agile, which is like continuous integration and doing the continuous testing throughout the life cycle, won't be a large difference in that aspect when it comes to the IoT technologies.
Thanks, Pradeep. Yeah, we have a few more questions. So there's a question from Terry. I think this is for Jermaine. So Terry is asking about the scorecards and metrics and about the developers at JB Hunt.
So scorecard and metrics. So specifically, so if I think about what we, from a development perspective, and I won't go into detail, but I'll tell you what we're measuring. From a development perspective, we're measuring feature delivery. So when I think about that, it's features closed and average lead time days for features for the product. It's code quality, and our code quality static code analysis tool of choice is SonarQube. So it's code pass versus failed. It's release quality. So defects that for features that we've released, what is the number of defects that we realize for releasing those features, and it's changes that we're measuring. So it's regular changes versus emergency changes, and what we want to see is, as we're iterating on the products, how much emergency changes are we bringing? So if we have a trend of see a big trend of emergency changes coming, that means that we are doing something wrong. From an operations perspective, we're measuring performance. So performance of the product and application, infrastructure availability, IT customer service. So for that one particular, we're measuring SLAs on open versus closed tickets. And we really we've got SLAs that we've defined across the enterprise, and we really are measuring that because we want to measure customer satisfaction, right? So as tickets are coming in, how fast are we closing them, and how are we adhered to our existing SLAs? And then security, we're measuring that by security vulnerabilities that we've identified for the product. And then business, star ratings is one for usability of the product and how well our consumers like it. Usage of a product. So we're getting this information from Google Analytics in particular, and usage of a particular product. And what we want to see is a trend of more and more users as we're rolling out our core systems and modernized systems to be able to use it. And then we're also finally, from a business perspective, measuring finance. So we're measuring development costs, we're measuring operational costs to projections. So that's our scorecard, and we'll have our scorecard for each product, and that's how we're measuring progress.
Thank you, Jermaine. I think I see lots of questions flowing in, but considering the time, we can end this here. We'll definitely answer all your questions. Please, we'll reply to all the answers, and we'll take the experts' views also and send it to you. If we have more questions, please reach out to us at contact@cigniti.com. But thanks everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Jermaine, and thank you, Pradeep, for the great insights. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Record it.